What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Grusby, and I want to talk about something that I'm sure the entire internet is already well aware of at this point, the situation between Totally Not Mark and Toei Animation. As a content creator and as a YouTuber, I feel like I would like to voice my own opinion about this as someone that has been on the platform for almost 8 years and has seen a lot of the dark and a lot of the good that the platform has to offer. So by now, it's no secret that just getting by as a content creator on YouTube is really one of the hardest things ever. I mean, when we aren't, trying to battle our way through this crowd to try to get some elbow room in the recommendations, I mean, we're fighting tooth and nail for some precious watch time or for some viewer interaction, and it's a constant struggle to keep the copyright claims and the takedowns at bay. And that's for regular YouTubers, that's for people that do regular content. I don't like separating content creators from content creators, but let's be real. When it comes to a niche market like anime and being an Anituber, it feels like it's just a whole lot harder. A few years ago, we were under almost constant fire, and now it seems that, once again, we're being targeted. Like, Japan has just set their eyes on the platform's Anituber community, and specifically, now it's Toei Animation, who, at the start of the week, just went after fellow content creator and Anituber Totally Not Mark and systematically began taking down his videos. Over the course of a few days, 150 videos that were about Dragon Ball and One Piece were claimed and blocked and essentially removed, because when you get a content claim, most of the time it involves just the video being blocked. I have talked at length about the seemingly thin wire that I myself have personally had to walk when it came to making anime-related videos. Back several years ago, I was so terrified of getting my channel shut down because of copyright strikes, just because they were just going after anyone that even had the name of an anime in the title, that I wouldn't even show images of the anime. I wouldn't show footage of the series. I'd seen and heard the horror stories of content creators getting their channels shut down or getting so many copyright strikes that their entire channel was just obliterated. And I wasn't willing to take that risk. This feels like it is clearly a targeted attack by Toei Animation. And like Mark said in his video addressing this issue, he's been made an example of. Toei is showing everyone that they have a gun to the heads of the Anituber community and that they will pull that trigger anytime that they feel like it. And I think the most frustrating thing about the situation is that it is kind of threefold. It isn't just Toei Animation here that's being revealed as being at fault. It's a lot of things that are at fault that exacerbate the situation. A lot of people are yelling about fair use. A lot of people are blaming YouTube's blatantly broken content ID system, and most specifically, there is a lot of outrage that a company like Toei would abuse this system when all they had to do was just put in a little bit of effort and they would realize the difference between an actual intellectual property violation and fan promotion. To them, I guess there's no difference. But first, I want to tackle this fair use thing. Now, I've talked about it before, but I feel like it needs to be brought up again. Now, fair use isn't a worldwide thing. I want to make that absolutely clear. Fair use is not a worldwide thing. Not every country in the world has fair use laws. So when you talk about fair use, this country or that country that maybe doesn't have that concept isn't going to understand. They have no basis badge that you can wear and then wave around prior to making a video with the expectation that we're going to always get what we want. And YouTube isn't a court of law. They're not capable of passing judgment on what is and what isn't a fair use argument. They are an unbiased third party. That is and always will be a privilege of the owner of the work and the determination of the courts. So if you're expecting YouTube to step in and declare that something is transformative, that's a liability for them that they cannot make. They shouldn't even be able to make it. They're not allowed to make it. Fair use is a defense that you use after you have been sued by a company for copyright infringement, not before. If it was the other way around, then the burden would be on the creators of the intellectual property and not the persons that are using the property. And you're going to be surprised. Here's the terrible crutch of it. All of this stems from illegal piracy. And Japan isn't the only country to suffer from it. But it is evident that they have a serious problem with it. And laws that were put into place this past January are geared specifically to combat this illegal piracy. So it isn't any wonder that industry giants like Toei are eager and willing to get on board. So that being said, the Japanese anime industry is in desperate need of updating, and it's in desperate need of learning how to accommodate YouTube influencers. Some companies have seen the benefit of influencers, and even hard-asses like Nintendo have made great strides in realizing that content creators can actually help them, and that how by and large they spread the positives of the industry through promotion and conversation. And let's be clear about this. There is a huge difference between a channel that enthusiastically discusses their favorite anime show and one that just uploads whole episodes so that entitled weebs can get some free shit as though they are doing God's work or some kind of humanitarian service. Earlier in the year, I went to bat against a company that claimed the audio from one of my Final Fantasy live streams. They were an American company that clearly abused the system and not only claimed the video, but claimed music in the video that they themselves did not even have a license for. And you know what YouTube did? Absolutely flippin' nothing. Despite several attempts to reach out to YouTube on their Twitter and get some sort of action, even telling them, showing YouTube, like, look, this company does not have the license for this. I got nothing but generic replies, and I eventually had to take matters into my own hands. And I went in search of the company. I found them, I found out how to contact them, and every day I sent them emails arguing my point. Every day. I would have my coffee, and while I had my coffee, I would compose my email telling them that I wanted the claim removed, that it was a false claim, they were morons, that I knew they didn't own the license to the music that they were claiming. I showed them proof of who actually owned it, etc., etc. After a few weeks of this, the claims were lifted. But I had to do all the heavy lifting. The way we are supposed to be able to do this is by making use of the YouTube system, which gives us the slowest and most broken tools necessary. And even then, the decision is not up to YouTube, it's up to the copyright owners. The copyright owners are going to have to look at it and go, oh, okay, so they're claiming this is fair use. Let's look into this. This is 2 seconds of whatever. Yeah, what the flip? It's so transformative. It doesn't destroy the original work. They're clearly not using the entire thing. It's for review purposes and critical purposes, whatever. Yeah, it's fine. Lift the claim. That, in an ideal world, is how it is supposed to work, because at the end of the day, it's up to the owner to sort of agree with you that it is fair use. As much as I would like to say it's fair use, and I would like there to be some law that de facto states something is fair use, I still don't own it. It still belongs to the owners. It's your argument with them, okay? That's how it works. You have to convince them. Regardless of how sure you are, they're the ones that have to agree to it. Now, on one hand, I have to say, this is actually sort of fair. Now, think about it like this. If it was a legit case of somebody abusing copyright, okay, let's just suppose that I'm the bad guy here. Let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that I'm using all of, let's say, Billie Eilish's music in my videos. They're not transformative. I use the entire song, and I have them monetized somehow, and I'm making thousands of dollars a week off of content that isn't mine. And Billie Eilish's record label, they swoop in and they use the content ID system and they claim every single video. Now, if it was as simple as just pressing a button and saying, "Oh, it's fair use, YouTube. I'm the good guy. Button press, instant copyright claim lift." Well, you wouldn't want to do that. You don't want an actual abuser of the system to be able to hit a button and then just get away with more violations. But on the other hand, you want a company that is issuing the claim to do their due diligence. They have a responsibility to make sure that their claims are actually sound instead of just doing a broad scope hit and run. It's not a perfect system. It really isn't. I mean, on one hand, it takes entirely too long to get an answer back when you say something isn't an actual instance of copyright violation. I mean, there was some sort of a report or some research that showed that 60% of the time, it's going to favor the content creators. That's a lot. That's more than half. That's enough to mean that, by and large, YouTube content creators know when we're breaking the rules. We're well aware of this. We've been beaten nearly to death by the rules since the beginning. Now, YouTube isn't a court of law, and they aren't required or legally able to determine what is and isn't fair use. Even if it is actually fair use, it's not up to them. They are only capable of handling things that violate their own rules. So if they say, "Don't abuse this system that we put into place," then they can and should deal with the offender. But if they were to step in between every single instance of a content creator and a content owner disputing some copyright claim and having to make some sort of decision that something is or isn't fair use, they would need to change the name of the site to something else. So while it certainly isn't making YouTube any more or less friends whenever this sort of thing happens, they aren't entirely to blame. They're simply the site that hosts content, even if they do seem to always come out looking as though they're playing favorites. So what about Toei? Are they 100% wrong here? Well, in terms of Japanese law, no, they are not. But in terms of content that one makes outside of their jurisdiction in a country that operates with fair use, that may be a different matter. For one thing, it's important to note that there is no such thing as international copyright law, and no country can impose their laws onto another country. Japan can't arbitrarily say that just because they have a law about something, that they can suddenly make the same demands of some other country to do the same. Like apparently we get accused of doing all the time. So if you're operating in a country that makes allowances for the fair use defense, then a company in Japan should be aware of what those jurisdictional laws are before they start fingering that particular hole, expecting to get some goodies to fall out. What I'm saying is, before Japan comes over here and starts kicking down the door, they need to understand how the ball game is played. The fact that Toei crushed over 100 videos in mere hours, in some of them seconds apart from one another, shows that they disregarded their own due diligence in determining whether the works were transformative. Even if by their own laws it was a violation, but because this was made and uploaded by a site that's housed in America where fair use exists, they didn't even bother to maybe check to see if they could get away with this. This is because Toei knows that in this particular case, they have the upper hand. They know full well that YouTube will not intervene. The burden of proof is going to rest entirely on Totally Not Mark, and Toei knows that to get something like this overturned would require taking them to an American court to make the defense of fair use, which I'm sure Totally Not Mark isn't prepared to do. Maybe if this was over one video, but not 150 of them. In essence, Toei are abusing the system at the very least. And at the worst, they're thumbing their nose at the allowances of the fair use argument in another country, the country where YouTube operates, or the country where Mark operates. To put it bluntly, Toei Animation are dicks. This isn't any reason to be monsters. And make no mistake, this isn't the first time that this has happened, and Toei are not the only ones. In the past, there have been Studio Feel, TMS Entertainment, and others have gone on massive killing sprees against AniTube channels and their content. And sadly, it will continue. So, what can be done? At this point, for Mark, I don't really feel like much can be done. It will take nothing less than a change of heart from Toei to undo what they've implemented. Or, and this is a big one, for YouTube to grow a pair of balls and call Toei out for abusing their system, which Toei has clearly done. YouTube should recognize at the very least what lines are being crossed and step in, not as an arbiter of the law, not to say this is fair use, because again, they can't do that. But they need to step in and say, you're abusing our system. Because you did this so quickly, you clearly didn't take the responsibility upon yourself to look over these videos, and you just hit that button as many times as you could because reasons, which that's not what it's there for. Now, I want to say this, and here's the hypocrisy in all of this. If YouTube were housed in Japan, okay, if Japan was YouTube's base of operation, then I guarantee you that this would be a whole different song and dance. And they would put on the heavy gloves. But because YouTube is a bunch of indifferent bitches, then we can be guaranteed that nothing will be done. That doesn't mean that we can't and shouldn't do something. As far as I'm concerned, I think a total block of all things Toei is a good start. I think it's time that the anime community take a stand against a company that clearly doesn't like its fans or anyone else. But even as I say this, I know deep down that no one will do a damn thing. Because at the end of the day, we all know that this is Mark's problem. And the same fans that are calling for Toei to go suck a fat one today, tomorrow will forget all about it the minute the next episode of One Piece airs on Crunchyroll. We all talk a good game, but when it counts, we aren't going to do without that anime fix. So honestly, as sad as it makes me, I don't expect much to come of it. And Mark and others like him will continue to be victims of a narcissistic company on the other side of the world, safe and out of our reach. I think the most appalling thing of all is that this happened just weeks before the Christmas holidays. This cancerous behavior not only affects Mark's life, but everyone that works for him and depends on the monetization that his videos generate. We aren't asking for the moon here, but whenever YouTube as a platform allows such a blatant molestation of their own system like this, and then turns a blind eye, it makes for extremely bitter pills all around. I would encourage everyone to go give Mark as much support as you can. I will have provided a link to his channel in the description, though by now I'm sure the entire internet is flooded with it. Just show him and his team some fandom appreciation, give his videos a watch, and if you can, consider supporting his Patreon. As for Toei, I certainly won't be showing them any public support for a while. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. And of course, if you're new to the channel, I would love it if you would subscribe for more. If you'd like to support me directly, you can do so by heading on to my Patreon. There's a link down in the description as well. And if you want, you can donate as little as $1. I'll get a coffee. I'll get right back to work making more videos. Have an amazing day, everyone. Keep being awesome. And I'll see you all in the next video.